Jono, this is your last week, so we thought we'd get your world-famous crystal ball out after you predicted the demise of Fremantle all those years ago. No one does a pre-season preview better than you, so why don't we kick off 18 teams over the next 3 or 4 nights? And tonight we'll begin with the A's. Well, we'll begin with A, in fact, Adelaide. They've had a big week. They've had a couple of big announcements, but can their footy team improve next year? Welcome again.
Yeah, Gerard, it's going to be a big year for the Adelaide Crows next year. When we look back at what they were able to produce this year, 8 wins, 14th on the ladder. Look, they were able to provide some spark, I think, with some youth coming through. Saligo, I know you like Saligo, yeah, Gerard, in the way that he moves around the ground. I thought Jordan Dawson fitted in really well.
Big pickup.
He averaged over 600 metres gained pretty much for his output. Yep. So slow start, but really built into the way that, they want to play their footy under Matty Nix. And Darcy Fogarty, 33 goals, was a huge result, I think, in terms of his improvement in the competition. Then you got Josh Rochelle, who just started so well. And I think another pre-season under his belt will allow his growth in this footy club. The key areas, Rory Sloane coming back from injury, big question mark on him finding and recapturing that form. And their key backs, Butts and Murray, they were just out-muscled, outsized throughout the entire season. So they have to work on supporting their defence, I think, a little bit more. Attack's in the right spot. Midfield will grow. Defence is the area that they really need to support.
Yeah, they probably need to continue to build that midfield, but ultimately, as you rightly said, they've got, as far as keys are concerned, take Tex Walker out of it. He's in his last year or second last year, Max, I would think.
Yep, agree.
They've got to get some of these plentiful talls that they've got coming through. Now, they've got some high draft picks in those areas. They lost one. Frampton's gone. He's gone to the Pies. So they have got 2 or 3 that have had enough games now for next year to really start to see some improvement.
That's it. And you got the inclusion of Isaac Rankin. So everyone's excited by that, understand the level that he can play at. Everyone's saying, well, he needs to become a midfielder. But that's not going to be next year. It's still going to be a split where it's going to be maybe even 75-25. You know what I mean? Like, he's not there yet. So that's 2-3 years down the track for Isaac Rankin to maybe even become a 50-50 split in terms of his ability to run out a game in the midfield and then have an impact in the forward half of the ground.
Yes, it's hard to know, do you turn him into a midfielder? I mean, let's put him into the best hope I reckon they could do is to get a Shea Bolton. They'd like to have him as a Shea Bolton. Now, he may have more tricks around goals than Shea, but that would be saying something.
That would be the perfect role and something that he needs to aspire to, because that's been the class of Bolton's improvement this year as his spark in the midfield. But it is a spark. That's purely what it is.
That's right. He just gets him in there, gets him the release, gets him unhinged from anybody that's putting a close tag on him. But there's a lot of midfielders out there. There's very few that can kick goals like Bolton and Isaac Rankin. So, bottom 6, middle 6 or top 6?
Bottom 6 for the Adelaide Crows.
Still bottom 6?
Still bottom 6.
Okie doke. Yep. Moving on. The Brisbane Lions, who have picked up a couple of boom recruits.
Yes, they have.
Had a good off-season.
They very much have, Gerard. It's the Brisbane Lions. When you look at prelim final, they got 2 big finals wins, which I think was critical for them as a football club. Richmond in the first week, Melbourne in the second week of the finals, and then they got destroyed by the Cats in the prelim final. So
that one big final win, wasn't it? Though it was a monster.
It's exactly what they needed, though. I think as a club, and I think they realise still what they need to sort of work on. Up forward, they've got class everywhere. Their mids are strong, and I know that Josh Dunkley is an addition to that. Defensively, they provided some good run. Coleman, I thought, improved as a player in his one. Answorth, Andrews and Adams are that tall combination. If Adams goes down, I think it affects them defensively with their structure. So look, across the board, they're in the right spot. They'll get Will Ashcroft in. They'll get Jasper Fletcher in, a couple of father-sons, which will be great for the footy club. They've got Jack Gunston to replace McStay. I think he adds a fair bit, Jack Gunston, to his smarts in the forward half of the ground, and might release Bailey a little bit higher at times and get him some more midfield minutes.
I need Joe Danaher to be the Joe Danaher of the first 6 weeks last year, not the last 6 weeks. I know he got the injury, so he needs to come out 100%.
Yeah, he does. And that combination with Hipwood is critical. We know the effect of the 2 key forwards and the impact they can have across a season. We saw it with Geelong and what they produced with Hawkins and Cameron. So they're the 2. Cam Rayner's a little bit of a smoky for me. I think he showed enough and got better as the year went on. So
he's one more possession.
And I think that will happen. Coming off the injury, and then as it went on, he started to move out of stoppage a bit more with a bit more speed and freedom.
Rainer man.
And movement. So, get on Rayner next year.
Bottom 6, middle 6, top 6?
Top 6.
Top 4?
Top 4.
Top 2?
No.
Okay, moving on. Only pre-season prediction.
It is.
These things can change. Carlton, the Mighty Blues.
What do you mean they'll change? They'll be held to this for the next 12 months, Jared. So the Blues, they were good this year, the Blues. They were great to watch. Yeah, they missed out on finals, finishing 9th. Michael Voss, I think, changed the tone of the way they want to play their footy. Cripps and Walsh finally got some help in the midfield. So Hewitt, Cher and Kennedy. I thought O'Brien was okay on a wing and improved as a player.
Akers is a good pickup.
Akers is going to be great for them because what he does, he creates width. He's a width player. He plays the wings and he plays them wide. So he's the perfect player for when they are coming out of defence, that they will be able to have an access to a player who will be able to continue that transition of ball going forward. Corey Durden was excellent up forward. Jesse Motlop provided a spark. 3 All-Australians this year, although not making the finals in Cripps, Curnow and Sard. So all of a sudden you've got All-Australians, you've got Wiedering, Curnow and Mackay, the 3 bigs that they've built the team around. I thought Doherty was one of the stories of the year coming back from the cancer and then playing the football that he did was outstanding. Everything's in the right spot for Carlton to really grow and push themselves out.
I thought Hewitt was a huge loss for them.
He was.
In fact, I reckon they tipped over when he went out.
Yeah, it's a good point because of that support in the midfield that he was providing and providing some good numbers in terms of what he was able to do in an offensive manner in winning his own ball, but then restricting the opposition, which he's done for his entire career. So
their best last year was as good as any of the top 4 sides.
Yeah, I agree with that. And look, Liam Jones wasn't there anyway. He's gone. Will Setterfield didn't affect their structure too much in terms of him leaving. So Blake Acres is the key in, and they'll be a top 8 side definitely next year.
Middle 6, top 6, bottom 6.
They will sit 6th.
Top 6.
Top 6.
I like it. Moving on. Pies.
The Pies were a surprise.
They were amazing.
Absolutely.
Surprise Pies.
Big time. Like, you talk about the influence of the coach we just did with Michael Voss. Craig McRae was sensational. I think, the way that he was able to change their style of play to become more of an attacking
run and gun.
Free running type of team. I think the Dacos boys were awesome. McCreary is a young fella. Ginnivan got plenty of airtime this year, but still played some pretty strong football throughout the home and away season. Jamie Elliott was just clutch in some critical moments. And look, they're a team that, for me now, we look at the draw, and I know the way that we talk about things all the time, but them being in a top 6 draw, I suppose, is the only big question mark now. They come from bottom 6 and just bolted. The challenge now is playing against the best teams in the competition. They will be in some close encounters and they will get blown away at times. But how they keep responding in these situations is the critical watch.
Picked up a few players, though, a couple of senior players.
Yeah, Bobby Hill is a good pickup, I think, with some speed. McStay, we wait and see. Like, McStay's a good structural player and he will help Myercheck in terms of that. And Myercheck needs support. So he's going to get that. But whether he can give you the goal output, I'm not too sure that they'd be searching for. Billy Frampton might be able to provide that. Tom Mitchell's a great get.
I think he's a ripper.
Yeah, this is an accumulator in the middle of the ground. Yeah. So, their mids are strong, and Taylor Adams is the other one. If they have a Mitchell-Adams combination in the middle of the ground and Taylor Adams can get himself through a full season without being injured, that's going to be huge for the Pies.
Plus, it means Pendlebury can play behind the ball more.
Well, that's it. And he just sets up behind the contest brilliantly, moves on to that side with his composure, and his structure, the way he structures up everyone else is brilliant.
Top 6?
Middle 6.
Middle 6. Big call from Jono. That's the first big call of the pre-season, folks. Middle 6 for the Pies.
Middle 6 for the Pies. But that's not a negative either.
That's 7th or 8th.
That is 7th or 8th. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I would have thought top 6 for you. But,
no, middle 6 because it's just the draw that they've got.
I know you're putting a lot of stake in the draw.
I am putting a lot in that, and they bolted this year.
Yep.
But they could level for 12 months or 12 months before they actually go again as a footy club.
All right. So at this stage, they're not bottom 6. That's the one thing we can be consistent on. Let's move on to the Bombers, who have had a very interesting off-season. Not all of it good, but they've got a good coach. They've appointed Brad Scott, and he's now starting to work the team around him.
Yeah, exactly. 7 wins, but it was just a disappointing
7
year.
wins,
yeah,
wasn't
it was. There was turmoil sort of everywhere. Talk on Ben Rutten throughout the entire season and where he was at, and
players weren't happy. Players were happy.
Exactly right. And the way they played their footy at times was okay, and then other times it was just
one
no
ripper.
good whatsoever.
They belted St Kilda Marvel Stadium. I saw that game and I thought, gee, this group has really come on, but they faded.
Oh, they got players that have come on. Like Perkins was brilliant. Draper showed a fair bit. Caldwell, Harrison Jones is a player of the future as well. Peter Wright up front. They had enough. Even Laverde, I think, really had to fight down back, and he did a great job at times. They did have that ability to unleash some younger players within their lineup. But overall, they're just after stability. I suppose Nick Martin was the other one that had an excellent year as well as a young. Who's
the man I've forgotten? Cross half back.
Oh, D'Ambrosio.
No, not in a first or second year.
Mason Redmond.
Redmond.
Sensational.
Sensational year.
Yeah. So all of a sudden we've mentioned probably 10 names there that can actually take this club forward with some stability around them. Now the stability comes from Brad Scott, the coaching staff. And then the broader club, once they're all set up and ready to go.
Bottom 6, mid 6, top 6.
No, bottom 6.
Still bottom 6. Yep. That'll be disappointing for Bombers fans. And finally, the Dockers, really interesting. As I said to you earlier, I'm interested in them. I think they will go forward, but they've compromised their depth to a degree. How do you see it?
Yeah, no, I think they'll go forward again as a footy club. They were very good again this year, and it's all based for me on their back six.
Fantastic back six.
As good as
in the game.
They're building a premiership defence, I think. And when you look at the three keys that they've got, they had them out there more often than not this year. So they're able to defensively structure up better.
Cox, Pearce, and Ryan.
They're the three. And then you had Young running off half back,
got
who was
some ripping talent.
Walker was very good. So Jordan Clark slotted in brilliantly. And so all of a sudden they were able to provide the run. And then the mids were able to play. We know the star midfield that they have got that'll continue to evolve and get better. So, but they lose some key players. Blake Acres, you mentioned already, going to Carlton. Rory Lobb, Griffin Logue, Darcy Tucker was sort of in their probably best 25 or 6, and then Lloyd Meek, which is an interesting loss.
They've lost depth,
and that's a big question mark. In terms of. Why have all these players all of a sudden, when Freo are in a pretty good spot to start to challenge over the next couple of years, why are they all going? And so, it's a big question, I suppose, that we'll wait and see how they perform to how it's answered. Josh Corbett comes in. Luke Jackson's the big recruit of the year. So there's a replacement for Lobb and Meek, I suppose, two for one. And Jager O'Meara, which I think fell into their lap late. And so he can add a bit of class and ball use, especially with Mundy going out. I think O'Meara comes in, can play high half forward, get up on a wing, get behind the contest and use the ball well. Still
got a lot of improvement. A lot of their young blokes, even the high-profile young blokes, couple of midfielders, couple of half-backs. I like them. That's why I was so disappointed for them that they lost a couple along the way. But I see them top 6. Where do you see them?
I see them top 6, but the conversation all year can't be around Fife again. So they need to work out a way as a footy club that they just completely shut that away. Fife played 7 games, wasn't going to play 4, was going to play in the midfield only. All these conversations that were bubbling around need to disappear from the outset for them to go forward and be successful in the top 6.
Bottom 6, middle
top
6.
Top
6 for you.
Yep.
Okie doke, folks. Well, that's our first pre-season wrap-up. There's half a dozen sides that Jono has pushed through. So at this stage, just repeating, correct me if I'm wrong, Adelaide bottom 6, Brisbane top 6, Carlton middle 6.
Middle 6?
7th or...
7th, no, they were top 6. No, they were middle 6. Sorry, they were middle 6.
7th or 8th.
Yes.
Collingwood was
middle 6.
So they're 7th and 8th.
Yes.
Essendon were bottom 6. And Freo top 6.
Now, we're going to have to keep a list here because I'll double up somewhere.
You can't have too many in the top 6.
That's it.
So, Jono, tonight we have got 6 other teams. Geelong, Gold Coast, GWS, Hawthorn, Melbourne and North Melbourne. Let's begin with the Premiers. Clearly they're going to finish top 6. That'll be your prediction. So let's get that out of the way. What's going to prevent them from going back-to-back?
What a year, honestly. It was huge. 16 straight wins in the competition that we've got, and how even we consider it to be is an almighty effort.
I remember doing a Friday night game, Jono, with Gerard Whateley and Hutto and Nathan Jones, and it was against the Dogs. And I reckon it was about round 6 or round 8. And we turned up really with a view of asking a question, how good was the Bulldogs? Were the Bulldogs going to be genuine challengers? Not really giving Geelong the credit that they could be. And their performance, Geelong, was quite superb. and it should have awoken us earlier to the fact that this was a different Geelong, because it was.
Well, it was significant. I think a few of the changes that they made off the field had a big say in that, with Steve Hocking getting back to the club, and the coaching changes that they did make. I just think brought a fresh approach to some of the players that have been around the whole time. The Hawkins-Cameron combo was sensational to watch throughout the entire year. Tyson Stengel was a huge.
Atkins into the middle.
That was one of the moves of the year. Atkins was growing up a superb inside midfielder. Now, when you get to the system and you've got Selwood and Dangerfield and the like in there, Duncan at the time, you get Guthrie, you get pushed out. But it was a great move to put him back around.
Duncan went to the halfback, and he went to.
Yeah, and Duncan's had his injury concerns over the last couple of years, so he was able to push straight in there. Joel Selwood played, limited minutes in certain times and certain stages of the year, and then you had the young guns. Close went to another year. DeConning was sensational at full back, what he was able to produce. Zach Guthrie was a surprise packet.
He was. He's good, wasn't he?
I worked with Zach a few years ago when I was doing a little bit of part-time work down there, and you could see the ability of where it was going to go, but you just didn't know whether he'd fill out in terms of being able to produce a body size to play the role that he wanted to. And he's such a good interceptor, and you could just see a different size and maturity about the way that he played.
Certainly fooled me. I didn't think he'd make it, and he's come on in
his ball use was a lot better. It's gone to the level that's accepted at AFL level. And then Max Holmes was a huge surprise this year and a massive jump in his own performance, and I think added some excitement to the way the Cats play their footy with his speed and burst out of the contest. It was just a shame that it ended the way that it did for a young man in the competition. So their off-season was great again. Tony Bruin, Jack Bowes, Ollie Henry. So they've got the young guns. So the good thing now is that you've got Selwood retiring. You've got Hawkins at the end, Danger coming towards the end the next few years potentially. So they've got these youngsters now that they've been able to get from other clubs that become the future. So it's onward and upward for the Cats. They'll repeat what they did this year. Maybe not the wins in a row, but they'll certainly repeat their performance and be very tough to beat.
So Geelong top 6. We're moving on to the Gold Coast. I'll be interested in your thoughts on the Gold Coast, whether or not you can see them pushing into the finals.
Oh, they're a mid-table team, and they will be again next year, Gerard. We've watched a lot of the Gold Coast Suns together, and I think at times we get excited by them, and other times you sort of sit there and question actually when will they make that next step as a football club. I thought they made some great strides this year. I really did, and I think they stayed in the season longer. Normally it's a big start by the Gold Coast Suns. They're fresh, they're up and about, tackle pressure's high, 100 tackles a game, and it slowly diminishes as the years go on. But then this year they hung in there for longer. So that was an improvement, I think, across the board. King goes down with the ACL at the start of the year. Chol was a good recruit with Casbolt. I thought they stood up. 79 goals between them. That's a big tick. You got Witts and Miller in the middle of the ground, which is a great combo. Matty Rowell was the one that I had a really close look at this year. So Anderson goes to another level.
Yep.
Rowell took a little bit, but finally got back to that contest-to-contest play that made him stand out when he first entered the competition. He lost that with the injury, and then when he came back, he wasn't physically ready, and he was caught in the middle a lot. And last year, or the season just gone, he got back to being able to push around a little bit better and be a little bit stronger in the contest again.
Gets lots of tackles. I'd love to see him get some more possessions.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, totally agree with that. So, look, Ben Ainsworth improved. Elijah Holland showed some class. I thought he was around 21 rising star. And that game in particular, with 23 disposals, 9 marks, 2 goals and 520 metres gained, you thought, okay, here's a young man that can, with another preseason under his belt, he's got some confidence, can hopefully help them accelerate where they need to go to. So they had some big wins throughout the year. They had some poor losses again, as we understand. Their off-season, they got Ben Long from St Kilda, Thomas Berry from Brisbane. They lost Corbett. They lose Rankin, which is a big one, and Bowes, who was on the outer there anyway. So he just he leaves. He wasn't playing. So so now they go in the draft with pick 5, 45, 71, and 74. So pick 5's the big one.
Okay, Jono. Couple of questions. Where does King play? Is he definitely forward, or do you see him potentially coming off the Rico, slotting into centre half back?
Oh, it would be tempting. No question.
They need another. They need another one.
I think that he does stay in that position. I think Chol's the flexible one.
Centre half back for Chol?
Potentially. So I just think, well, the combination, I think they've got to give it go first. Yep. Casbolt slides, unfortunately, and maybe becomes the second rucky fiver on the interchange. Chol-King combination, it's got something about it that can grow over a period of time. So I think they give that a go first before altering King's positioning on the ground.
And Jack Lukosius, what's his best position and where's he at?
I think his best position is probably across half-back.
Yep.
Yeah, I think, trying to play half-forward, high half-forward, I understand them trying to utilise his ball inside forward 50, which at times was unbelievable, and at other times, he missed the target by the length of the straight. So there's that element with his kicking, but I think off half-back is where he should try. They should try and settle him down.
Yeah, there's another couple of levels for him to go up. I think if they are going to take great strides, then he needs to play like a top 2 or 3 draft pick.
But they've got to get serious with that in the preseason and seriously do extra kicking with this guy to get it to the level required consistently.
Middle 6 or bottom 6?
I had them in the middle 6, Gold Coast.
Gold Coast, middle 6. We're going to move on now to the Giants. New coach, lots of midfield players out. Got a lot of youngsters coming back into the side. Phil Davis returns after an injury. Where are they going to finish, Jono?
Oh, they're going to finish in the bottom 6 for me.
Bottom 6.
Yeah, GWS. Look, 2022, six wins, coach gone, departing stars again when you look at Taranto and Hopper and Bruin. Bobby Hill goes to Collingwood. So there's 4 players there that they lose that are in their starting 22. And that's the aspect for me that you go, okay, well, next year they're starting again now, GWS, and they've got the new coach. They've got some young guns like a Finn Callaghan who can provide a bit of a spark. Jacob Ware, I thought was okay.
I haven't seen much of Finn Callaghan, have we?
No, we haven't, but we will.
Yeah,
because
he's a good player.
Under what structure of their team now, he should push straight in and get an opportunity early. It's up to him then whether he holds his spot in the team, and that may fluctuate as a young man. We understand that. Isaac Cumming and Tom Green, they're the two that elevated themselves a little bit. Tom Green did drop away as the season went on. Can he play 22 rippers next year? So that's where GWS are at. The biggest key for me in 2023 and beyond, new coach Adam Kinsley, but they need to start retaining players because every year, whether it's
that means they've got to get the salary cap organised.
That's spot on, and that's what I was just about to say, is their salary cap has pushed players out. They've got to get to the stage now where as a football club, they get that aspect right so then they can retain players because if they keep losing players over the next 5 years, then we're just going to be talking about exactly the same thing year after year.
Bottom 6 for the Giants. The Hawks, they'll be bottom 6.
Yes.
Tell me a bit about the Hawks.
The Hawks, well, Sam Mitchell is first campaign at the helm. I thought it was successful.
Yep,
I really did.
I liked it.
So I think he's got the formation of a successful side well and truly underway. His forwards are pretty good. He's got some young forwards down there. His midfield, he threw the youngsters in there to get them going, and they actually stood up for most of the year. And Newcomb led the way in regards to that. Mitch Lewis down forward, CJ off half back, Will Day, Scrimshaw, Bramble, Granger Barras. He's starting to build a core group of 10 players, 10 to 12 players that will play potentially 200 games together. And we all know that if you build that, then that becomes the successful group to take you to the level. And there's players in this 10 or 12 that he's putting together that are high class that will get better year on year.
Okay, one final one. One word answer. Gowers or Penkerville for the president?
Oh, Gowers for a bit of a change. Mitchell's made a change. Gowers is on that as well.
Okay, Jono, one final question. One word answer, please. Nankerville or Gowers for the president?
Gowers.
Going Gowers. Gowers is in for Jono. Okay, from Hawthorn, we're going to the Demons. One of the most disappointing sides last year. I know they've had a very high bar, but started, I think, with 10 straight wins and finished losing so many games in the back half of the season.
Yeah,
Where do they finish?
Spot on. They finished in the top 6.
Yep.
You're right with the start of their season. It was unbelievable. Then they finished with 3 losses in a row to the Docker Swans and Magpies. Mm-hmm. So after the 10 wins, they had those 3 losses to the Docker Swans and Magpies. Yep. And what happened then, I think the competition got some hope. I think in the first 10 weeks, the competition was like, what do we do to stop this team? 3 sides did it in a row, and the competition sort of sat up and took notice of that. Then they lose their 2 consecutive finals, and that just was a disappointing end. The back half of their year, they just had the rumblings on the outside, and their football on the inside was a little bit inconsistent. And I think the biggest thing for Melbourne is some of their forwards, and in particular Bailey Fritz, I think up forward, had some moments to really reflect on. And trust me, I've been in that situation where you've had the shot when probably there was a teammate there to give it to. So I'm talking from experience. Yep. And you've got to reflect on those moments to make yourself better, but also the team improvement is significant.
Yes.
With that, and it's Bailey and it's Spargo and it's Pickett and the mid to small forwards that I think can really shift that way that they do play as a collective group. Because in their grand final year, it was unbelievable how they were as a group. They went away from that, and then they need to get back to what they produced as the collective, not as the individual.
One of the challenging positional moves for me was Brayshaw into the middle. And it worked for Brayshaw, but I'm not convinced it worked for Melbourne.
Yeah, well, you got...
Because off the half back line, under pressure, I reckon they were found out. They I think, lacked the capacity to move the ball. And that was their big knock on. The champion data stats will tell you their ball movement was horrible compared to the year before.
So maybe that does happen if Viney plays. So you go Oliver, Petrarca, Viney as your three. Then you need to start mixing that up with a Pickett through there, I think, a little bit more often, and Sparrow. So Jordan had a good year.
Even Dunstan can come into the side. They didn't use him at all.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. But he's probably more your filler in case one of those guys, the top end guys, gets injured. The May and Lever situation was really strong, I thought. I thought they played well together. Petty's the question mark now.
Forward or back?
Well, I think he's still back. You need the third key back. Yes, he played one good half of football up forward, and everyone went, well, we've been calling for that for some time. But it's not necessarily going to work every week either. I think he's more settled as a defender. Okay,
Demons for the top six, which means there's only one spot available for the top six left. And it's not going to be North Melbourne, but they're our final side for tonight, Jono. It's a really interesting look, North Melbourne. They've picked up a few players. They've got a great new coach. Coach is under the public scrutiny at the present time with the investigation. But I think that'll sort itself out. Where do you see the Kangaroos?
Yeah, well, this year, when you look at it was just a season where they had significant losses. Key players were absent.
Yep.
Departure of Dable Noble. They need to create some stability around the football club. And Alistair Clarkson gets through the next period of time. I think he's the man who can create that, certainly. So, and the other, I suppose, aspect was the Jason Horne-Francis situation, which bubbled away in the second half of the season. That's been dealt with now. That's done. They can put a full stop on that and hopefully move past it, unless he dominates for Port Adelaide.
That's right.
And they'll work that out.
Darren Thomas is the other one.
On it.
He needs to sort himself out and get going.
Yeah, that's no question whatsoever with that. Josh Simpkin was good.
Yep.
Luke Davies-Uniacke.
Terrific.
I think he was the biggest improver on the year from most individuals in the competition because he went from a player that was averaging 15 disposals roughly and lucky to get over 20 at times to now 25 getting over 30 consistently. And it was his break out of the contest and he got to the...
He was dangerous.
Yeah, he was. He was good to watch, really good to watch. And then you had some youngsters like Curtis and Archie got to go and Bergman. So North Melbourne will build. Alistair Clarkson, if he jumps back into the seat, they'll probably win 3 or 4.
Okay. 3 or 4 wins for the Kangaroos. A couple more than that would be a good season. Port Adelaide is... there's one spot left in the top 6. And so far in this group, we've got Port Adelaide, Richmond, St Kilda, Sydney, West Coast and the Western Bulldogs.
Ooh, it's a good list, isn't it?
So there's a few there that are going to be pushing for top 6. Let's start with Port Adelaide. They've picked up some players.
Yeah, they have. Jason Horne-Francis, the number 1, which they'd be very happy with. They'll be very happy with Junior Rioli from the West Coast Eagles as well, with Robbie Gray retiring and ending his
one of my favourite players.
Oh, me too. He was a front and square specialist, an absolute star of the game. And so Junior Rioli comes in to replace.
He's also one
Robbie
of my favourite players.
Yeah, there you go.
Disappointed he left the Eagles, but anyway.
But that's the reality now, and he'll fill that role perfectly in the forward half of the ground for the Port Adelaide Footy Club. Look, the prelim in 2021 to not making finals in 2022. Now, I'm not sure whether it's gone under the radar, but it just hasn't had the same, I suppose, negative approach to it as to what some other clubs have sort of had come at them off poor performances when they performed quite well the year before.
0-5 for memory last year.
They were.
I thought Ken Hinkley did a great job holding it together. I mean, he was battling for his job in many ways. He's got an army.
He's always battling for his job.
He's got an army of people over there that, even when he wins the flag, won't be happy.
I think he likes that. I think he likes people some coming at him. So he then just switches into that mode. I'm going to prove you wrong and get the job done.
When you do have those and you fight back, ultimately, normally you fail because it's so hard trying to recover from a bad start. But they are looking they're looking a side that could generate some finals chances.
The health of their tools is the key here. We know they've got the star young players that we've talked about for the last 3 or 4 years, and they will continue to get better.
Rosie went to a new level.
In the midfield he did, and Ollie Wines and what he does. But it is about Charlie Dixon, I think, and whether he can perform well in 22 outings or 23 outings for the club. Alir in the back half as well. And Scott Lycett in the ruck. So there's your three, I think, that help to shape where this club can go in 2023.
What about the other two younger tools? Is it time for them to jump up?
Todd Marshall being one of those, I thought improved this year. So I think he'll get even better with Charlie Dixon down in that half of the ground. So his opponent won't be as big or as strong, and I think he'll be able to control that matchup a little bit better. Sam Powell-Pepper, I thought, had a very good year. He was their best player when they were going terrible at 0-5, and he was able to maintain that throughout the majority of the season. Jeremy Finlayson showed a little bit as well,
terrific
up
season.
forward and in the ruck when he had to fill that role. So, but yeah, look, for me, I think they'll finish mid-table again.
Yep.
Yes, they get Jason Horne-Francis. Yes, they get Junior Earl. They lose Carl Amon, their runner on the outside. Robbie Gray's a big loss, I think, for them in their team, and I think they'll sit in the middle of the ladder.
So Port Adelaide for middle 6. Let's go to the Tigers.
Let's go to what a team.
Let's go to the Tigers.
The way they responded was sensational.
They picked up 3 magnificent midfielders.
They have
2 from the Giants and 1 from their own ranks in Dustin Martin.
Yeah, they'll get Dusty back to Rando and Hopper. Now, I wrestled with this, and I know I know Gerard where I've got in my top 6 at the moment, and I'm thinking
you've only got 1 spot left.
Well, I'm thinking I might have to make 2 adjustments off the back of this right at the end. And those 2 adjustments might be Carlton and Freo, who I've got in the top 6 at the moment.
Yep.
But when I was going through this over the last 24 hours, I'm thinking, how can I leave Richmond really out of the top 6 because of the recruits that they've got, and as you said, Dusty coming back and playing footy as well. 13 wins this year. They finished 7th, and I think with what
lost
Tom Lynch
a couple
did,
of close ones too.
they did. But with what Shai Bolton went to a level that we just absolutely loved watching, and Jaden Short was the same. Rioli off half back. Gibcus is one of their now key defenders and a really smart young player in the competition. I can't see them not making the top 6.
Okay, so who have we got in the top 6 so far?
In the top 6 so far, we have got Carlton, Fremantle, Geelong, Brisbane, Melbourne, and Sydney. So I'm going to go with Geelong, Brisbane, Melbourne, and Sydney. I'm going to move Carlton and Freo to the mid.
Mid-6.
The mid-6.
So Carlton's out and Freo's out.
Yeah.
So you've now got...
Richmond will come in.
Right.
And I've got another one to come in shortly as well after the analysis.
So far you've got Geelong, Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney, Richmond.
And I'll have one more. One other will come in.
I've got a funny feeling who it might be. So the Tigers go to middle 6. We talked about the Saints last night with Lenny Hayes. Where are they going to kick off there?
Yeah, it was a good conversation with Lenny last night. I thought it was, he set the scene really well on their improvement. They've lost some key players. When you look at Ryder, Hanbury, Geary, and Dean Kent in some ways, just from more an experienced type play. But the top 3 in particular and what they offered the footy club. I know Hanbury didn't play, but still that experience that's not there. So 11 wins, dropped away poorly. So, look, Jack Sinclair, what a star. But we go to Ross Lyon and we go, okay, what effect will Ross Lyon have, Lenny Hayes have, Robert Harvey and Corey Enright? They're the 4 mains. We know Goddard's doing a development role, and we'll see that. They've got some young players that showed a little bit last year. Windhager was exciting in his 18 games that he did play.
Wanganeen Metalera.
Yeah, another one who got a taste of it. So you just hope that these youngsters that got a taste of it and a reasonable run, that they come back, as we say always, come back flying at the start of pre-season to really build so that they can stay in the team in 2023.
I haven't got their list with me, but Jack Hayes he's a small ruckman, but he had an amazing debut, then he got injured. Now that Paddy Ryder's not there, they look a tiny bit short in the ruck, do they not?
Well, they look a little bit short in the ruck. So Marshall will play a role, and he's a good player. Don't get me wrong there. So he'll do that well. I think they like him up forward at times as well.
So who's going to be the backup ruckman?
Well, it has to be Hayes. I think you could nearly play King as a forward, just a ruckman in the forward 50, and allow Marshall to protect himself in terms of how much running he's doing in the game.
Last year, put him in the ruck when he was having a bit of a quiet patch, but I don't think they want his knees anywhere near the ruck.
No, but if a boundary throw-in up forward, I think, is not going to affect. Yeah, jumping in the middle of the ground will, but not up forward like that. And I think their forward half's okay. Their midfield's okay. It's just that they've got Jack Sinclair off the half back. It's just whether their tools down back can, get the job done next year.
Okay, so you've got them as a mid.
A mid.
And we're moving on from the Saints to last year's grand finalists, Sydney.
Yeah, the best group of 23 and under in the competition by a long way. What they were able to do last year was awesome. When you go Warner, Goulden, McDonald, McCartan, McLean, Stevens, Rowbottom, you just keep naming these
Rowbottom
guys.
third in the best and fairest. It was great recognition, wasn't it?
Well, across their best and fairest, even Goulden was seventh, I think. So or sixth or seventh. So that was a huge shift for John Longmire in the way that his team was set up. Obviously, Mills winning it, which I thought was great as well. And look, they had an awesome year last year. They celebrated the biggest moment in footy history just about with Buddy kicking 1,000 goals and the atmosphere
that was amazing.
Around that.
Yep.
And look, poor in the grand final.
Yep.
But overall, and we spoke to John Longmire about this a couple of weeks ago, he's pleased with the way that they improved as a team. And I think it exceeded his expectations. So now, with that, can they stand up again? I think they definitely can.
Top six?
Top six.
Top six. So that rounds out the top six. No, it doesn't. One spot to go. You already nominated them. Let's move on to the West Coast Eagles, who are coming off probably their worst season under Simo.
Yeah, they lose Junior Rioli. We've spoken about him going to Port Adelaide. Jaden Hunt comes from Melbourne, so they'll get a bit of speed and run from Jaden Hunt. And look, 2 wins. I never thought I'd say that about a West Coast Eagles team that had some significant players still in their lineup, and you go, wow, they had 2 wins. So I think for West Coast, for me last year, they had a lot of players off 2021 coming into 2022 who had a lot of operations and a lot of injuries. They didn't get pre-seasons under their belt. They chased their tail all year, and I think they protected that a little bit. So, yeah, the senior players went out there, but I think as a club, they would have had a mentality of, we need to get through clean, so our off-season is not riddled with operations again, so that they can actually step into the 2022-23 pre-season healthy to give themselves the best chance. And Oscar Allen was probably the one of the main players that was absent last year. Now, I know he's young, but he's an excellent player in their side. So Josh Kennedy retires. They lose 40, 50 goals there. Can Oscar Allen jump up and replace that?
Well, let's hope he plays in that position. He is able to settle down, because when they had the lot, he became the fill-in.
He was.
And it was
Sally's,
centre half back in the ruck, carrying a bit of an injury.
Yep.
I thought it weighed him down a fair bit. He's one of the most exciting players in the competition, but we just haven't seen it for 12 months.
So they had 42 players making an appearance this year, West Coast. I think they'd like to make that around 35 or 36 maximum next year. So they'll be bottom 6.
Bottom 6 for the West Coast Eagles, building off the draft. And it'd be interesting to see whether they pick up the young midfielder over there, whose name has escaped me, that they're pretty keen on. Is it like Gibney or something along those lines?
Not too sure. We'll get that.
Gibney. There it is.
There it is.
Gibney it is.
Yes, it is. So, and look, I think Elliot Yeo's the other one that we just got to keep a watch on.
Yeah.
Because he's a good player and he needs to recapture his form.
So, Tom Barras.
Yes.
Big year last. I mean, the pressure on the All-Australian selectors to get him in was immense. And he had a fantastic year, and he's one of the rare people who have won a best and fairest playing fullback, Jono.
Yeah, exactly.
Rarely happens when the side's at the top of the ladder.
That's it.
But he had a fantastic year.
He was, and we know the McGovern-Barras combination is as strong as any in the competition when they are going well. But as I said, this is one team though, West Coast. We spoke about Essendon potentially jumping out of a bottom 6 draw. I think West Coast could seriously jump out of a bottom 6 draw, especially if they get their confidence up early at home. There's probably 8 of 11 wins at home that they can have next year.
A lot of people said they're old and it's time to rebuild. But after Geelong win the flag, all of that sort of local and old school wisdom is out the window. But they're going to need their best players, their biggest names, to play well.
They need to have a huge season next year. Because they were all disappointing this year, and they all had reasons for that. But those reasons are now gone. They start again, and they're the key players, and there's probably about 8 of them, and we know who they are. They need to step up next year to make this team bounce. I've got them in a bottom 6, but they could be a mid-6, bottom part of the 8 if they get their season right with the draw they've got.
A little bit of positive thoughts for Jono for the West Coast Eagles. Okay, here's a side you know a little bit about, the Western Bulldogs. Can you slide them into the top 6?
Well, with who they've lost Cordy down back, a bit of a utility as well in terms in the end of the way he was playing his footy. Shaki, Lockie Hunter with his run on the wing, and Josh Dunkley's the big one. Losing a best and fairest winner to the Brisbane Lions is a significant loss. Liam Jones coming in and Rory Lobb. So structurally, that's good for the Bulldogs. They needed that. They needed a fullback who, you know, of Liam Jones's quality, I think, who's turned in, and I know he's had 12 months off, but, you know, hopefully he comes back with the same desire and ability to play at the level he did for the Blues in that position. And Rory Lobb, who I think will help Tim English, who went to another level this year and played some excellent footy, and will certainly give some assistance in the forward half of the ground. So overall, with the Bulldogs, they didn't meet the expectations of 2022. Coming off another grand final, they didn't sort of hit the heights that with that expectation around them. And you sort of go to, okay, Ken O'Brien, he needs to lift, Tim O'Brien. Dale and Daniel, I think, need to get better again, especially with their consistent ball use. Very good players, but they need to become excellent players in this competition if the Bulldogs to become a top 4 team. Waitman was good, needs to go to another level again. And Vandermeer, who had his injuries, can he come back and produce that speed and dynamic play that really helps set the Bulldogs up? You're not concerned about losing 2 guns out of the midfield? No, I'm not, because the midfield of the Bulldogs is strong regardless. So when you got the names of Liberatore, McRae, Bontempelli and Smith as your 4, then outside the square, the Bulldogs have got enough class to be able to cover that. So Riley West may get an opportunity to step maybe up a little bit. He played well as a forward, might get some opportunity with some midfield minutes next year. He'll be able to do that. Ed Richards went to another level. And then you've got Sam Darcy and Ugle-Hagan, who are the other 2 keys, and we haven't mentioned Norton yet, but the other 2 keys that look, well, Sam Darcy, I think, should settle down back. So he's centre-half back? I think so. Okay. Because then you've got Rory Lobb. I think he played his best footy there. I know he had a good quarter against Hawthorn down forward, but I think he was better suited as a key defender. And Ugle-Hagan played well this year, and can he use that to really propel, you know, a big year in 2023? You've got so many good chess pieces there. You've got to sort of share your A-graders around. Now, Darcy's not an A-grader because he's just a young bloke, but you can't stick all the tools in the forward line. So he looks, of the lot of them, the best sort of suited, in my view, to play across that centre-half back position for a period of time. Now, whether that's 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, who knows? Well, it helps with the recruitment of Liam Jones. So you've got Liam Jones in behind him who will structure him up. You've then got maybe Gardner playing a role that suits him as well as he went this year, Gardner. And I think he's exceeded the expectations of what the Bulldogs thought they would get from a Gardner, and his improvement as a player, and he did fight it out undermanned at times, or undersized at times. So I think that sort of helps with Liam Jones in, helps Darcy at centre-half back, and structurally allows the Bulldogs to set up a little bit better defensively. John, I've been riding this guy for a couple of years, and he's hard to miss, but I think Tim English could challenge for the All-Australian ruck next year. I agree with that. I think his best last year was as good as anyone's best, and I think he should set his sights on, okay, I can be the number 1 ruckman in this competition. His ability to get outside of the contest was a lot better. His marking around the ground was a lot better. He's finally, I think, at a comfortable size where he feels like that he actually can compete against the best from a physicality point of view, and he's not sort of pushed off the ball as often as he was the previous years, especially under the high ball, which he's got to sit under the high ball a fair bit. He was a lot better in that this year, and I agree. His movement around the ground and his ball use and his kicking ability is excellent. So I agree. I think he'll really push up and really start to challenge Max Gawn in terms of who was the All-Australian ruckman, and he didn't have his best year, Max, but he was. I mean, the ruck depth last year wasn't as significant as it has been, but Max was All-Australian. And he can kick goals, Tim English, as well. So I think that adds. This is where the Lobb situation, I assume Lobb is they're going to interchange him in the ruck. So, look, could be very potent. Exciting times for all those sides. But we move on. Let's just finalise it, though. The top 6, you've got Geelong, Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney and Richmond, and now the Western Bulldogs. That's right. So outside of the top 6, you've got Carlton, Fremantle, and Collingwood. I have got those 3. Then Port Adelaide, so Kilda and Gold Coast. One of those is not going to make the finals. Exactly right. That's why it's tough at the top. That's tough. And look, you look at the teams that played finals this year.
Yep.
And we put 4 in there automatically, I think, in Geelong, Brisbane, Melbourne and Sydney. So, yeah, I guess it's tough to knock a couple out, of course, but ultimately it's tough to get in. And that's why the competition, I think, the last couple of years has been awesome, is because we go as deep as 13 or 14 teams that can actually play finals footy.
Well, Port Adelaide could certainly play finals footy.
No question. No question with that. But they've got to get their season together. And there will be, and as I said, West Coast or Essendon potentially could jump out of that bottom 6 with a draw. That if they get their confidence up like Collingwood did and it suits them, they win a couple of close games, all of a sudden they're picking up 3 or 4 extra wins on the year that pushes them into calculations. That's why it does go so deep, and that's why we love, and that's why it's so tough.
You are the master of the prediction. That's why we got you in to do the job. If I was to say one thing, I reckon...
Who would you replace in that?
I'd be surprised if Collingwood aren't playing top 6 footy.
Okay.
So they are the ones for me that... and I'd be surprised if Carlton aren't.
Exactly.
And you know what? I'd be surprised if Fremantle aren't there as well.
So that's the hard part. Who are you replacing?
No, you're doing the tips, Jono. You're doing the predictions. Earlier today...